So you're buying a home in Orlando. That's awesome. But you're probably finding out it's also filled with all these confusing fees. Well, in this explainer, we're going to tackle one of the big ones, the appraisal fee. You're going to want to stick around because understanding this can save you a whole lot of headaches and maybe even some cash.
Okay, picture this. You did it. You found the perfect home, you put in an offer, and it was just accepted. It's such an incredible feeling, right? But just as you're celebrating, the process starts throwing all these new terms and costs at you. And pretty high up on that list is a huge question. Who in the world actually pays for the home appraisal? All right, let's just cut right to the chase and start with the standard rule, the person who almost always ends up footing the bill. And here's the simple, straightforward answer. In a normal Orlando home purchase, it's you, the buyer, who is responsible for paying that appraisal fee. It's one of the very first costs you'll need to get ready for.
But hang on, what is a home appraisal anyway? Well, it's basically a professional's expert opinion on what a property is worth. But here's the key thing to get. It's not really for you. It's for the lender. They're the ones who require it to make sure the house is actually worth the huge chunk of money they're about to lend you.
So, how does this all play out? It's pretty simple. Your lender is the one who officially orders the appraisal from a licensed professional, but they immediately turn around and pass that cost right on to you. And here's the part that catches people by surprise. You almost always pay this fee up front, way before you ever get to the closing table. It's one of your first real out-of-pocket expenses in the whole process. Okay, so we've established the buyer usually pays, but this is real estate we're talking about, and you know there are always exceptions to the rule. So let's dive into a few key situations where the seller might actually be the one to step in and cover this cost for you. So when could you potentially catch a break? Well, first off, during your negotiations, you might ask for something called seller concessions. This is where the seller agrees to pay for some of your closing costs, and you can definitely try to roll the appraisal fee into that. Second, what if the appraisal comes in low and the whole deal is at risk? A really motivated seller might offer to pay for a second appraisal to challenge that low value. And finally, if you're looking at new construction, some builders will offer to pay the fee as a sweet little perk to get you to sign, especially if you use their preferred lender. Now, appraisals aren't just for when you're buying a house. They pop up in a few other situations, and it's actually pretty useful to know about them because who pays the fee changes depending on the reason for the appraisal. And when you see it all laid out like this, a really clear pattern emerges, doesn't it? When you're buying, the buyer pays. If you're refinancing your existing mortgage, you, the homeowner, pay. If a seller wants to know what to list their house for, they're the one who pays. It all just comes down to a simple question. Who is this appraisal for? Whoever benefits from it is the one who foots the... Okay, so we know who pays and why they're paying. But that brings us to what's probably the most important question for you right now. How much money are we actually talking about here? Let's get into the real numbers for the Orlando market. For a pretty standard single-family home here in Central Florida, you should probably plan on budgeting somewhere in this range between about $650 and $800. That's a really typical fee for a full professional appraisal report.
But, and this is a big but, that price is not set in stone. If you're buying a huge house, a one-of-a-kind property on a lake, or if the market is just crazy busy, you should be prepared for that fee to go up. In some of those cases, it can climb all the way to $1,200. So it's always a smart move to ask your lender for an estimate right at the start.
Okay, and here is the one thing I really, really need you to remember from all of this. That appraisal fee, it's pretty much always non-refundable. Let that sink in for a second. If the deal completely falls apart for any reason, maybe the inspection is a disaster, maybe your financing hits a snag, that money you paid for the appraisal, it's gone. It is a key financial risk you are taking on as the buyer. So there you have it. You know the rules, you know the costs. The buyer usually pays, it's not exactly cheap, and you probably won't get that money back if things go south. So the real question now is, what are you going to do with this information? How can you budget for it and maybe even negotiate it as you move forward? Being prepared for this one fee can make your entire home buying journey just that much smoother.